Hello, I'm Terry Leverett, President of Prepare the Way. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. His name is Rod Callen. He's speaking on water, and he comes to it with a 22-year history of living a prepared lifestyle. He and his wife live on land, and they have for 22 years. So listen well. Thank you.
Well, again, our subject is water. And as we start here, I'm going to, this is actually some pond water. It's got a little sediment. I don't know if there's any tadpoles or not in there, but so since Terry made this, he kind of adapted one and made one in a glass filter. That way you can kind of see it work. So we'll just pour this in here, and then you all get to have a little drink a little later. And kind of filter out the chunks if you can. And then for the people who made a deposit in the local urinal, go this way. Actually, this is not, because you can't really do urine. You can do it with a solar kind of dehydrator, solar steel basically. But NASA spent like $324 million, getting one for the astronauts, and even then, they're having problems with it. Wow. But anyway, so we'll let those kind of perk and let them work a little bit as we go through some of our time here. Okay, so slide number one, water is number one. And the reason we say it's number one is because within 3 days without water, you're going to die. So water becomes a very critical and probably the number one thing you need to take care of as you think about preparedness. Mark Twain said, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over. And I think as time goes on, we're going to see that become more and more true. We're going to start seeing more water wars between states. There's a lot of things happening, especially, we're very familiar with what's going on with the drought now here in our area, in the whole Midwest, what that does to the cost of things, and also, irrigation is such an important part of agriculture anymore. And I don't know if you know that a lot of farmers in Illinois, Indiana, even parts of Missouri have had to stop irrigating out of rivers and out of streams because of the, actually it's the aquifers that are actually dropping so much. We have the aquifer that covers a lot of Kansas, in Nebraska, all the way down to Texas, and it is dropping dangerously low. And so a lot of that ground out there, wheatland, a lot of things in western Kansas, that's how it's through irrigation. You think of the Central Valley in California, that's where probably the biggest majority of our vegetables, fruits come from. They're having water shortages out there. If that water is cut off, that Central Valley is basically a desert. So we need to begin to think in the sense that water has become much more valuable. I've heard Rick Joyner say that there'll come a day where water will be more expensive than gasoline. The Department of Homeland Security now suggests that each family have at least a 10-day supply of water for each individual. Now, it used to be that FEMA would say 3 days. So obviously, they're kind of beginning to up the scale of how much water you should have on hand to store. Next slide, please. Okay, just some water facts. Water is heavy, over 8 pounds a gallon. Now, the reason I put that in there is because if you think about transporting water, like in most third world countries, the average person travels 3.7 miles to their water source, and they're usually carrying it on foot or sometimes by bicycle. So as you begin to think of identifying your additional water source, you need to begin to think about, okay, the weight involved, how I'm going to transport it, how I'm going to get that water there. Minimum of 1 gallon per person per day is generally considered the rule of thumb. Now, that's drinking water only, but you need to consider you need fresh water, portable water for brushing your teeth, for washing dishes, for cooking with. When I was in Haiti after the earthquake, on our base camp, we had a lot of medical personnel that were coming in. Different teams would come in, and they were drinking purified water, but they were washing their teeth in water from the tap. And so we had a lot of these doctors getting very sick, nurses, getting very sick, and it's nothing more miserable being in a third world country, and having it coming out both ends. So you need to think about, as you think about, your water storage, also to realize you need it. So now we're really up to a minimum of 2 gallons, and that's a minimum, because currently I think the average American uses like 30 gallons a day. So that's that's really cutting it down. In extreme circumstances, you can ration water down to 1 quart a day, but you will slowly dehydrate. So the rule of thumb is always find another source of water. Now you might be in a situation where you don't have any other choice, you're trapped. So you can ration water, but no, you don't want to do that long term. So always identify and begin thinking, okay, when I've got my water storage, where is my additional source going to be? Where can I get additional water? And as we go later, we're going to be talking about the different ways to purify it, commercial products that are on the market, which is probably the most, what most people are going to do. But I'm going to also give you a bunch of alternative ways you can purify your water. Okay, next one. Okay, storage options. You can store water in 2-gallon jugs, 5-gallon jugs, quart jars. This is actually, we kind of just took a little picture in the basement there, but there's there's actually a 55-gallon barrel you can't see, but it's around a quart. We have 2 of those. 275-gallon IBC containers. So there's a lot of different methods that you can store water in. One thing you want to remember is that if you're storing water, don't store water in milk jugs or in the juice 1-gallon jugs, because you can't really adequately clean the milk proteins and the fruit sugars out of those. But you can use like 2-liter bottles, a pop, or you can even use the juice glasses, the clear, hard plastic juices. You can do those. All you need to do is wash them in soap and water, put a teaspoon of liquid chlorine bleach in it, screw the top on, shake it up so it gets up, in the lid, rinse it out, and just rinse it and put water in it and store it. Now they say if you store water for more than 6 months, you should put additional chlorine in it, 1 to 2 parts per million. I don't really worry about that, because I'm going to, if I've got water stored for 5 years, I'm going to be running through one of my filters anyway. So it's not really an issue. But if that's your only option, then you should be putting additional chlorine in it. Next slide. Now this is the new product that just come out. It's a 275-gallon Sure Water tank. This is designed, it's 29 inches. It'll fit through any standard 29-inch door. So this is why they made this, basically, because a lot of times your larger containers, you can't get through a standard door. And this you can get in. It runs, I think it's $345 plus delivery. And like I say, it doesn't take up much room. There's also companies that will sell a stand where you can put 3 55-gallon barrels on it, made out of steel. You can put in your basement, something like that. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. There's also a new product that comes out, it's actually called a water brick. It's rather expensive, but they're a real heavy-duty plastic, and you fill them up, and the advantage of those is that you can actually store them outside, like in freezing weather. It doesn't matter if they freeze or not. But they're very expensive. I think the cost of those are like $10 for $189, and only 3.5 gallons per brick. So, it's not, to me, that practical. Okay, next one. Tub tank. Okay, this, I think, Prepare the Way actually sells these, and they come in a little box like this. It comes with a little pump. It holds 65 gallons of water. The only negative thing on this would be you can only use it one time. So, I can see for people, especially say in a hurricane area, because a hurricane's coming. So you have time to plan. You can watch it, say, yeah, it is going to hit us. Then you could take this and fill it, and you'd have it available. Earthquake, that type of stuff, you're not going to have the warning, you're not going to know. But it's a good way to store water, and like I say, it's pretty reasonable. I think it's only like $25, and like I say, it gives you 65 gallons with the little pump that goes with it. These are actually a couple tanks I have behind my house, behind my barn. The round one is like a 650-gallon tank, and the other one's an IBC container, 275 gallons, and I just catch it off my barn roof. And if I get like a ½ inch of rain, I can fill that 650-gallon one with water. Now, my primary use for this is I use it for the water, for watering garden, for watering things outside. But in an emergency, I definitely use it, run it through one of my filters for drinking water also. Okay, next slide. Okay, water in a crisis. First thing you have to do is make a quick assessment, which is basically, how much water do I have, and how long will it last? And these are the type of things you need to think about beforehand. Begin to think, okay, how much water do I have? Based on that formula, 2 gallons per person per day, how long a time am I thinking of? And how much storage space do I have? But begin to make some plans. There's ways to conserve. If you've ever done any mission trips, you brush your teeth with a little cup of water. Reuse your wash water for your stools. You can conserve a lot of water. I mean, as Americans, we use a tremendous amount of water. In fact, I had a little chart, and I was kind of surprised. It said that the average family household in the United States uses 150 gallons a day. Now, in the United Kingdom, they use 40 gallons a day. And in China, 22 gallons, and in Kenya, 13 gallons. So you can see how, as Americans, we've been spoiled with always having plentiful water. Actually, before I moved to the farm, I never even thought about water. It's just always there. You just turn on the tap, it's there. Till I had a well, and then the well pump went out, and other issues, and a drought came, and then we didn't have water, and I was measuring water with a tape measure. So water became a very big deal. So back in the 80s, I began to kind of get clued in that, water is such a critical thing. And we, again, as Americans, we waste a lot. But, one way to control that is cost, and that's one thing I also keep an eye on cost-wise across the nation, and water rates, I can promise you, are going to be skyrocketing. So begin to get used to using a lot less water. Begin to think, how can I conserve now? And if you've ever, again, been on mission trips, for bathing, you can use a bucket bath, you can use baby wipes, you can do a lot of things with a lot less water. Okay, and the other thing is where to find more water in your home. Okay, there's some things we can do that you have water in your home that you may not be aware of. If you think of your electricity is out, your ice cube trays obviously have water in it that you can use. You have canned fruit. You have canned vegetables that have a certain amount of water there. You can do. You can drain your cold water pipes. Turn off the main. If your water's been already shut off, turn off the main water valve. Turn on your lowest faucet in the house, and then turn on your highest one. And on the cold water pipes, let the air circulate, and it will empty out your cold water pipes into whatever container you're catching it in. You can also, same thing with your hot water heater. You usually have a hot water heater with 40 to 65 gallons of water there. Make sure you turn off the power, turn off the gas, turn off the inflow, and then you can just drain your tank from the bottom there. So you have some additional water there, but again, that's a very limited amount that you have there. 99% of all urban, suburban houses, apartments, the municipal water is always pumped, obviously, by electricity. Now, in a normal thunderstorm, ice storm, that's not a big deal because they have the tanks, the water towers with tanks in it will last a while. They also have backup, a lot of times, generator. But if you're in for a long-term outage, don't expect to have water. In fact, I've been in meetings with FEMA and the SEMA, which is the state agency for emergency management. And it was actually on the New Madrid earthquake. And what they did said that you need to prepare, and people need to be prepared not to be without electricity for 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks, but 2 or 3 months in the Midwest. So it would cause, there's a lot of things involved in that, including the nuclear plant Fulton, the Bagnell dams, flooding that would occur. So there's some major things that they're preparing for and looking at. Also, they're looking at where they would actually evacuate a lot of those people. Would be Kansas City and Springfield are the 2 designated areas. And if you think about that, and you think about, okay, but if I don't have water, and we're depending on the size of the earthquake, if it's 8 to 9, we may not even have some of those things. But that's going to be the evacuate points for people from Memphis, from St. Louis areas that are going to be hit a lot worse. So you need to begin to think long term. Okay, I've got some water storage for short-term events, but on long-term events, I need to identify a water source. And that can be a lake close to you, a pond, a river, a stream, some body of water that you can get water from. Okay, next slide. But here's the key. All groundwater needs to be purified. So whatever source you're finding, whether it's a lake, again, a pond, stream, it's going to need to be purified. Now, there's 3 different categories of things that we actually purify the water from. Now, the first is protozoa, and that's things like amoeba, giardia, cryptosporidium, and they range from 100 microns usually, and the average is like 1,600 microns. And the reason I'm giving you the microns is because a lot of times your filters will be rated by micron level. And the second category is bacteria, dysentery, typhoid, cholera, E. coli. They're getting a little smaller, and that's from 0.2 to 1.5 microns. And the third category is viruses, and we'll talk about waterborne viruses: hepatitis, yellow fever, polio, and Norwalk. Now, the thing to remember about viruses is that that's really pretty rare. Unless there's been a waterborne viral outbreak, that's usually not going to be a problem with people. So don't get overly concerned about that, and there's other ways we can mitigate that. Because a lot of the filters do not take that out. But we do have, there is a Sawyer, which is one of the Sawyers. This particular Sawyer, I'm going to show you a little bit later, is a 0.1, but there is a 0.02 that will take out viruses. But again, viruses are usually not a problem, so I wouldn't worry about it. Okay, how to purify water. Okay, next slide. So here's some other methods. Okay, some of the methods you probably know about: boiling water. Okay, FEMA says to boil the water to a rolling boil for a minute. Now, I've had other sources say up to 10 minutes, some 2 to 3, but if you get it to 1 minute where it's actually rolling boil, you're going to be good. And that kills protozoa, bacteria, viruses. That takes care of everything. Now, the negative thing about boiling is it takes energy. You've got to have a heating source. So that's the only negative thing. That's why every time there's a water main break, they call it a boil order, because you're supposed to boil the water. Okay, the other one is liquid chlorine bleach. Now, liquid chlorine bleach, it kills bacteria and viruses, but not all protozoa. And the liquid bleach should read 5.25 to 6% hydrochlorite, and it shouldn't have any scent or any phosphates in it. It's not hard to do. I mean, your typical home brand that you probably have, like Clorox, I mean, it meets those requirements. And the disadvantage of Clorox, or liquid Clorox, is that it only lasts, within 6 months, you've already lost half of your strength of it. So if it's been sitting around a while, you can still use it. You're just going to need to double the amount. And I've got a chart I'll show you in a little bit that kind of gives you exactly how much liquid chlorine bleach to put in there. Dry calcium hypochlorite is actually, if you have a swimming pool, that's what's used in those. The advantage of those is that, while the liquid breaks down so quickly, you can keep the boxes of the dry for up to like 10 years to keep it dry. So there's there's advantage there, and also the strength. It's 70% hydrochloride as compared to the 5.25 to 6%. So it's a lot stronger. And if you already have a swimming pool and you already have it on hand, it's a good alternative. And you could buy a couple boxes from like Sam's or a swimming pool store, and you could just with 2 boxes you could actually do 4 million gallons of water with it. Now there is some danger in it, in that the fact that if it becomes moist or too hot, it can explode. If you have children, you don't want them playing in it, obviously, because it is 70% hydrochlorite, so it can burn them. So you need to be careful with it. The next one is liquid 2% denture of iodine. That's really not used as much anymore. It again kills bacteria and viruses. But the water needs to be about 70 degrees or warmer. Also, over time, it also loses its strength. And for those 2 reasons, it's not used a whole lot anymore as compared to some of the other methods. Purification tablets, they're a great thing to have. They can come in a small bottle, usually 1 tablet. You put in 1 quart of water, let it swish around a little bit, and it kills all bacteria, all the protozoa, viruses, takes care of everything. Again, that wouldn't be something I'd necessarily want for providing for a family, but it's great for if you're traveling or something small. Take care of things to go with, and it's pretty reasonable. I think Prepare the Way has the Katadyn model of tablets, and it runs like for a bottle of 20 is like $8.95. So it's not it's not overly expensive. Also, some people like distillation, but that's very energy efficient, and the ones I've seen, they were actually very expensive. For like 5 to 12 gallons, it was like cost of like $1,500 to $2,000 for the item. So I don't think that's necessarily a good option either. Now, commercial water filters, that's again probably what most people are going to do, and it's probably the most practical thing that most people are going to have is commercial water filters. There's several different types, and again, I mentioned micron ratings before. There's actually 2 different micron ratings, and that's one thing you want to be kind of knowledgeable about. And one is called an absolute, which means that whatever micron rating it says, there's nothing larger than that in that filter. The other was called a nominal, and that means that's the average micron rating, which means you could have the bulk of them being the smaller microns, but if you have the other one, the water would flow through the larger ones and actually could let in some impurities. So you always want to look for an absolute micron ratings. Okay, next one. Oh, by the way, that is that treatment for chlorine bleach. It just kind of gives you an idea. Like for a quart, 2 drops, a gallon, 8 drops, 10 gallons, 1 teaspoon, 55-gallon barrel, all the way up to 275-gallon IBC containers. So again, that's something that people have on hand, and if they haven't pre-thought, at least they could do something to purify their water. Okay, next one. Okay, reverse osmosis. Now this is primarily used in turning salt water into fresh water. And that's, by the way, any of these other commercial filters will not do that. The negative on reverse osmosis is it takes about 4 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of drinkable water. In fact, the first actually, when we moved to the farm, we had a well, again a shallow well, had bacteria in it, and so we had got a reverse osmosis one that was hooked up to the sink. But when you're shortage of water, you have water is an issue as far as having enough. You don't want to be wasting 4 gallons to get 1 gallon of water. So that's the negative part. The other part is that it does take out all the minerals, so you get pure H2O. But you know, the Navy's has used that aboard ships for decades, and you know they have never had a problem. But if you're a purist, you know, that might be an issue. Ultraviolet light. I don't know if any of you have seen the little like sterile pins. Is one brand. They're really pretty cool. When I was in Haiti, a lot of people had those, and they look like a little flashlight. You can just stick it in your pocket. You take a quart of water or something like this. You just stick it down through there, swirl around for 90 seconds, let the light penetrate through the water, and it will purify, take care of everything. Now the disadvantage is the water does need to be clear because the light has to penetrate through the water. So if you have a lot of turbidity in the water, I would take a coffee filter or even a shirt, something like that, filter that water so that light can penetrate through there. Now they also have larger. A lot of people may have these in their homes, and these UV lights are more. They're like a small shop light, and they're actually be in connection with a ceramic filter of some sort, and then they come through the UV light. In fact, several missions when I was in Haiti also, they were setting some of these systems up where it go through a filter and then through the UV light. The disadvantage again is that that light, you have to have water pressure. Some way you have to have pressure for that water to flow through. Okay. And then we're going to look at the actual filters. The next slide, I think I have one more on solar. Yeah, I do. Okay, solar disinfection. This is actually from, we went down to Echo Ministries down in Fort Myers, Florida this past winter, and they produce a lot of things for missionaries in third world countries. They do a lot of growing of plants that will translate to third world countries that they could grow, produce nutritious food, and they also look at different means of purifying water. And with solar disinfection, the way this works, as you can see, it's kind of they either have steel like this with a reflecting and in plastic bottles. They set it out in the sun for 6 hours, and then between the sunlight, UV light, going through and then bouncing back, and then the heat also, just from the natural heat, will purify that water in about 6 hours. They do this a lot in India, except they use wine bottles. They'll have glass bottles, make a little case, and they'll have a reflective background on it, set the water in there. Again, you need to be in the right latitude and longitude where you get more direct, heavy sun, but it works. And it's a good way. If you're using plastic bottles like that, you don't want to keep using them over time because the little crevices will start getting dirty, and your light won't be able to penetrate as well as it should. And that's why one reason in India, they have a lot of wine bottles, so that's why they use the glass in that. Okay, next one. The Aquamirror brand. The Prepare the Way sells all these products. The water bottle, $26.95, does like 100 gallons, and I have one here. Looks like this. In fact, all these products there are more, I would call these more traveling products, where you're on the road or you're traveling or you're in your car. They're all basically small, easy to carry, don't take up a lot of room. This is actually one I used in Haiti and down in different hurricanes. Is same basic principle, same. This is a Berkey model, but has a little filter on the bottom. And you just put your water in, and with the suction and the squeezing, it forces the water through the filter and up through the straw. So it's easy to carry, doesn't take up a lot of room, kind of like a sports bottle. They also have the straws, actually, front chill straws. This is the first one on that chart, $11.95, and it goes up to 20 gallons. And it's just a little straw with a little filter on it. Now, this would not be a good plan for your family, to go home and say, okay, guys, here's our water plan. 20 gallons isn't going to go very far, and you're all going to get tired of trading and sucking on that. but for great, again, for traveling. If you know, a lot of you guys, if you're on the road or you're traveling, vacation, whatever, this is something you can stick in your go bag, have in your car, just in case something happens, you have a way. And the Frontier Pro is a same thing, except it'll go to the 50 gallons, a little heavier, works the same way. And again, all of these products, when I'm thinking about it, you know, the U.S. standard is 99.99%. The international is 99.9999. All of these different brands will take, you know, are at least 99.99% effective. So no matter what you're using, they're all good. They will take care of the, you know, Cryptosporidium, Giardia, protozoa, bacteria. They will all work. And then they have the water treatment tablets. Again, as I mentioned before, like 14 gallons or $14, and that will cover like 6 gallons. And usually they have like a 3-year shelf life on that on the water treatment tablets. Okay, next one. Okay, these are the Berkeys. Now the Berkeys, as you can see, the only difference is the size and the capacity in all these that are shown there. Okay, next one. Okay, all these are gravity fed, so it's just a matter of pouring your water in the top. It feeds down through the filter and then into the bottom container. And then you have a little spigot on it. They work very efficiently, been used by missionaries for decades and decades all over the world. Cost-wise, the smallest from the travel Berkey, as you can see, just, you know, the price goes up depending on the size, the amount that they do per hour. You know, you go from the smallest being 2.5 gallons an hour to 6.5 gallons per hour. Now the filter life on the Berkey is 3,000 gallons per filter. So like in this particular model, I have 2 filters in this one, and these are candle shaped, so they're long, kind of elongated, and each of these filters would be 3,000. So if you had 4 in there, you could go for 12,000 gallons of water. So you just multiply depending on how many filters you actually have in it. But they're very effective. You know, they filter out anything you have to worry about. Again, if you were taking pond water, something like this, I would I'd just take like a coffee filter, pour that in, you know, through the coffee filter first, just to strain out some of the turbidity out of it. But it's again, this is a brand that's been around forever, very effective, and it looks nice. I'll tell you a little story. When I was in Austin doing a presentation, I was also I'm going to talk about this KISS in just a minute, but it was one of these models of KISS, and a man was coming up, and that's the model he wanted. He was going to buy it. And so, you know, he was up there ready to get it, and his wife came up, said, "You are not putting that on my kitchen counter." So he ended up with a Berkey. So be forewarned there. Okay, next one. Okay, the Katadyn. And it's a pump model. So basically all you do is you have a little hose, hooks here, you drop this into the water that you're going to be taking the water from. It also comes with a little float, so like if you're putting it in a stream, you know, it would float. And you simply pump it, and the water extracts from here. And you can put a water bottle attachment to it, or you can just, you know, pump it into whatever. Again, this is another, you know, company's been around for a long time, Swiss-made, very good, lasts for, you know, for many, many years. Personally, I would not use this as my home. This is still, as far as I'm concerned, more of a travel, hiking, backpacking type of thing. I mean, you can use it at home, but, you know, probably after a while you're going to get tired of pumping, while these gravity feds are just easier to use. Okay, next slide. And this is actually the model. This one is, as you can see, is $199. This one actually works the same way. It's a pump. about the same size, and yet it's $349. But, and they both have 13,000 gallon, filter life. But this is all metal and has a 20-year guarantee. So anytime you're using, if I was going to use one at home pump, I would get something that's quality that's going to last 20 years or more. So if you could get, if this was going to be your plan, then you'd want to get one that has, anytime you have moving parts, I mean, you're susceptible over time to breakage. So if that was going to be your plan, then I would say get the pocket. Say quite a bit more expensive. They also have the Expedition, and 1,199 gallons, but puts out a gallon a minute, 26,000 gallon filter life. And what it looks like, I don't have a picture to show you, but it actually looks like an old-fashioned tire pump, where you stand and you pump up the thing. It's the same way. It has a hose, goes into whatever water source. You sit there and pump, and it pumps out great volume. So for a family, that's a little overkill. But for, say, a community, a church group, you're going in together with some people, that'd be a great option right there. It really doesn't take up much room, but it can put out a tremendous amount of water. This is actually, well, not the glass, but the filter that is in this one is a KISS filter developed by some Baptist missionaries as a less expensive option, we'll say. The way, let me show you how the bucket one looks. Maybe I can get where you can kind of see this. Has a little filter, just a little ceramic filter in the bottom of it, and it comes in a kit. So in other words, you can buy either the kit with a bucket, or you can buy the kit by itself and use your own buckets. And all you have to do is drill a hole in the bottom, put the filter in, screw it in, and it comes with a little spigot, washers on each side, real simple to do, and it works very well, very effective. And as you can see, cost-wise, filter with the bucket, $58.50. Now Terry Levert always does things in a big way. So I guess you can all come up at one time and get in here and get your own water. But now the only thing I'd say about this is that actually it's supposed to be food grade plastic, but if I'm thirsty, I'm probably not going to care. The disadvantage of the KISS, just because of the way that filter is shaped, it's kind of a squat wide, is that you can only get one in a 5-gallon bucket. So that's one reason for that. The candle filters, you can get a lot more in because they're long and elongated, just the shape of them. But he does have the large KISS kit, which is $199, and it can produce 204 gallons a day. Now that's without your garbage pails. But everything else, the filters, your spigots, everything else you need to adapt it to. So it's a very reasonable. I mean, if finances is an issue, this is a great thing because, like say, for $58.50 and less, because you can actually you can buy the KISS without the bucket, and it is $39.50. So it's very reasonable. You get your own bucket, adapt it, drill your hose, you're set. And again, it's a ceramic filter. Okay, next one. All right, Sawyer brand. Sawyer is a whole different animal. Sawyer's use hollow fiber technology, which is the same technology you use for kidney dialysis. Let's see here. Show you one. So the way it works, this is the filter. And it's just a matter of, you drill a hole, filter hooks up, it's in line, and then whatever you're going to be pouring it in, take the cap off, pours it in. The best advantage I see of this is, while these other filters have a filter life, this is a 1,000,000-gallon filter. And the reason it is because when you buy the kit, it comes with a a syringe so that you back flush it. So when it starts getting clogged, you just back flush it. Also comes with a drill bit, so you can make your little drill bit. You can don't even have to have a drill. You can just you do it by hand, and everything's in the little kit. So it's pretty cool. The disadvantage of a Sawyer, everything has advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantage is it does not take out herbicides, pesticides, heavy metals. So I have some friends who live in Iowa, have a well, and they live right in the middle, basically, of cornfields, and they have a lot of pesticides, herbicides in their water. So they're purifying their water, not because the bacteria are the normal thing, but because of herbicides and pesticides, so they have a Berkey. And it comes in several different, okay, you notice the 0.1. 0.1, that's, again, the micron size. Okay, Terry has two models of the 0.02. The 0.02, again, will take out viruses. So that's the advantage there. As you can see, cost is quite a bit more, $219.99. But, again, viruses are not usually a problem. And if they were a problem, what would I do? Okay, one thing you can do is, say they happen to be a viral outbreak, you could put a little chlorine bleach, put it in your water, and then run it through your filter, which would take out the chlorine taste. So you can mitigate that different ways. But it's a very good product. It's a whole different type of technology than the ceramic or the black Berkey filters. So it works in a whole different way, but it works very good, and it's kind of the newer thing. And again, I think the biggest advantage to the Sawyer is the million life, gallon guarantee on the filter. Just being able to back flush it. Some of these other models, the Sawyer 6.1 and 1.62 are like bag models. I don't think he actually has some here, but they're and Katadyn will have some of these too, where they come with a bag, two bags, usually one bag. We put the dirty water in, a hose that goes to the second bag, which where your clean water is stored. And again, that's great for like if you're going camping or something like that, hanging in a tree, very portable, doesn't take up part of any room. But if you're going to do something at home, and again, I always tell people, you actually need two. You need something small for traveling, keeping your car, but you also need something at a larger capacity for home. And then depending, again, upon your size, if you're thinking about doing, a group or community, that's kind of a whole different animal. I'm more talking about family size, you and your neighbors, whoever it is that you're taking care of. Because there are systems that are a lot bigger. There are systems, I saw one just down in Austin a couple months ago that they just came out with, and it's like $7,000, but it's something you can take to third world country missions, or you can use it here. But it has a huge tank, everything, takes no tools, everything goes together by hand, locking together. Took like 20 minutes to put together, and a tremendous volume of water that you can put with that. Put it in any source of water you want. It has several sets of different filters on it. So they're coming out with more and more technology, more and more better ways of doing these things. So anyway, I just want to encourage you, again, to think about two different things. One is the things you're going to, the water purification method you're going to use when you're away from home, you're traveling, you're on vacation, if you had to evacuate, and as opposed to having also something for the home where you can take care of your family, plus hopefully some neighbors and some friends. So something with more capacity. One thing I'd also say is, like, if you never use any of these filters, the first time you use them, like first time you put a Berkey in, you pour the water in, and you say you got two filters in there, and you're kind of sitting there waiting, for the water to come out, and it doesn't seem like anything's happening. If it's never been used before, it takes a while for the water to saturate the filter before it begins to flow, and then once it begins to flow, it'll just start to flow. And the reason, or the way you know that the filter life is about gone, it'll stop, basically, to stop producing water. You can clean it with like a Scotch bread, or even a toothbrush. Clean the outside a little bit, put it back in, it'll last a while. But again, eventually, whether it's 3,000 gallons or so, you're going to have to replace it. So it's always good if you're getting one of these models, have several spare filters on hand. So when you run out, snap the next one in. So it's pretty easy. Okay, next one. This was also an Echo. This is just showing a different one. That's a Berkey again on the left, and Sawyer on the far right, and in between is one they made themselves. It's with a ceramic filter. So it'd be similar to the KISS filter. They just got their own bucket using a ceramic filter, and it works good. Okay, next one. 1 inch equals 6.624 gallons per square foot. Okay, that's the formula for rainfall. So for every inch of rain, you get that much per square foot. So again, as an example, 1,000 square foot roof, that's 624 gallons. So that's a lot of water coming down that you can catch in just a normal rainstorm. Okay, system components. I might add that if you're in Colorado, it's a whole different story because you can't catch water. That water that falls on your roof is not your water. That's the state's water. So you're probably going to start seeing more of that happening too. Yeah. It's pretty hard to believe, huh? Other states are doing that. Okay, systems, obviously you need a roof. It can be different materials. Metal is obviously better. They say don't use asphalt or composite because chemicals can leach from that. But if that's all I had, that's what I'd use. I wouldn't waste it. And I'd use it if nothing else for irrigation. You need gutter, downspout, some type of leaf guard or downspout filter, and that can be a leaf guard across your entire gutter, or else just one of the little filters that goes just catches the leaves and stuff in the corner. The first flush diverter or the roof wash. Basically what it is if you can picture your downspout coming down, okay, and then normally what you do with if you had your rain barrel over here, you'd have it tee up above somewhere, depending on how tall it was. You have a little plug in the bottom of your downspout, so that when the first rain comes, it washes the dust and the bird droppings, that type of stuff, and it goes down the gutter and it goes in that first 10 inches or whatever it is you have, and it stays there. The rest of the water that comes then will automatically flow out the tee and into your rain barrel, your attachment. So that way it keeps out and keeps it just makes it that much cleaner. So it's not a real big deal. And then obviously the next thing is storage tank, whatever size storage, whether it's a rain barrel or something larger. And those are going to depend upon your home association probably if you're in town. Or I always say the bigger the better. Basically, the more water you can catch. A good source is the American Rainwater Catchment System Association. You can go on there, and they even have plans to go through everything, covering how to do it, what works best. There's some states, like in this case, they're actually located in Austin, Texas, but they're very pro catching water. And so they even give discounts and tax abatements and things for people who do it. Okay, these are some pictures. This is actually in a crawl space at somebody's house, and it's like a bladder, and they have their rainwater that flows into that. Okay, next one. This is basically the same thing. This is actually under a deck. Somebody's building a deck, putting a deck in, and they have these water. They're again hooked into their gutter system, so they have stored water in all of those. This is a guy who's got his IBC container. He's a little more high tech. He's got a little solar panel there, and sort of hooks up to his pump, so he can pump it, with his, out his hose. Although, I mean, for me, what I do is I just have it set up on bricks and just gravity feed. But, if you want to play around with something like that. Okay, next one. And just the traditional rain barrels. And actually, you can put these side by side, and I've seen them, like some people have like 6 or 8 in a row, and they would just have it teed to the next one. So when it fills up the next one, it automatically flows the next and just keeps on going down the line. So if your home association says, you know, you can only have rain barrels, then you could have rain barrels. Okay? Oh, this is some friends of ours. Have a greenhouse business not too far from us. And they catch, well, before he started catching water, probably one of their bigger expenses was water. I mean, because the greenhouse uses lots of water. And they have, like, I forget what it is, maybe 4 or 5 different greenhouses. And so he's got some towers, I don't have a picture of those, but that hold thousands and thousands of gallons of water that comes off the greenhouses. This is actually a bladder. It was a military surplus, and it's really kind of like a big water bed. That thing contains 50,000 gallons of water. So he catches it, and then he has the pump that actually feeds his system, and he can water his plants through that way. And also just the standard big blue, I mean, as tall as this roof is, tanks on some of the ends of his greenhouses. Okay? One problem we have where we lived, when we first moved out, we were in another house, an older house, that we, again, as I said, we had a well, and then we also had a pond, a lake right there. We ended up selling that house and just moving down further on the property and building a new house, but we don't have a pond that will hold water anyway. And we don't have a well. We're on rural water now. We actually have Independence water, even though we're 50 miles out, which is good, very good quality water. But the problem I have is I catch water, and I catch lots of water, and I have it on the barns, you know, and so I can, you know, water stuff and use it for emergency. Problem being that, of course, where we live here in the Midwest, I'm going to have to drain those in, you know, late November, December, drain all my tanks so I don't have anything stored. So this last August, or a year ago, actually, it's not a burial plot, it's actually putting a cistern in that we dug a hole, the next slide, and put a 1,800-gallon cistern in so that I'd also have water, you know, in the winter. If something happens, I'd have a source of water. Wouldn't have to worry about freezing. And actually, I feel that with my sump pump. Of course, now it's not an issue, but during you know, a lot of times in late winter and spring, our water table really rises, and our sump pump will just, I mean, in fact, I put 2 in, just try to keep up, but just continually running. So then I just ran a hose from one of my sump pumps into that, and I could fill 1,800 gallons in a matter of 4 or 5 hours, and it'd be completely full. So, but again, right now, that's not an issue because I don't know where the water table is. I don't know if we can find a water table. But anyway, that kind of gives you some idea of, you know, different ways to capture water, how important water is. And again, there's a lot of different methods you can use to purify water. And if you had rain barrels or you're catching it in whatever way, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can use these. And again, any of these would meet your qualifications. For the most inexpensive, and again, like I say, this is for $58.50. I mean, that's a great deal. Or you want something a little nicer, looks a little nicer, the Berkey. This is actually a KISS, but again, this is one that Terry adapted. I think he bought this glass at Walmart, and then, you know, drilled a hole or whatever, glass cut it through there and used it. So, but again, it's something you need to think about on 2 levels. One, again, if I'm traveling, if I'm away from home, something in my car, because you don't know when something could happen. When it happens, you know, you don't want to think later, I wish I had that. And then again, something for home. Now, at home right now, I don't use these normally. I just have them where they're ready. You know, I've used it just to make sure, test it, make sure it all works and doesn't leak, but I'm not using it on a daily basis. But I also have some backup filters so that once, you know, if we're using this for long term, I could do it for, you know, for a period of years. So anyway, so that kind of gives you a basic of water purification, what we're purifying the water from, different ways to do it from low cost to higher cost, and ways to storage water. So thanks for your time, and just be sure to do something to take care of it. All right.